let's talk a little bit about this latest article or blog that you wrote, because it sort of jumped out at me. You said you don't want the Islamic Cultural Center to be built near ground zero. You want it to be built on ground zero. Tell us why.
Well, I'm just so offended by the bullying that's been taking place, picking on people who make up a very small percentage of our population and treating them as if they're not Americans. And they have every right to be in, near, around, at ground zero as anyone else. And I just got to thinking that, you know, the America that I believe in is an America that is generous of spirit and not one that wants to attack people because of their religious faith. And I personally feel very bad that these 19 murderers of 9/11 who killed 3,000 people were able to hijack a religion, did something what they said was in the name of Islam, and have made life very difficult for everybody else who is a member of this faith. And I thought, what better way could we, those of us who are not of the Islamic faith, do to show our fellow Muslim Americans that we so understand that these murderers hijack their religion from them, than to help restore the good name of their faith right there at ground zero. I mean, frankly, I never believed that there.
Yeah, I was just going to say, let me interrupt for a moment, because as you know, a lot of Americans think that they have every right to build the cultural center and mosque near ground zero, but they don't think it's necessarily appropriate. A brand new Quinnipiac University poll, for example, asked, is it appropriate to build a mosque and Islamic center near ground zero? 28% said yes, 63% said no. Why do Americans, why are they so opposed to this idea of building this mosque and cultural center near, not on ground zero, but even near ground zero?
Yeah, even near it. Yeah, I think it's because we're a little slow on the uptake sometimes. Those are pretty much the exact numbers of the people at the beginning of the Iraq War, of 28%, 30% opposed it, and about 70% were in favor of it. We always seem to get it wrong at first, whether that was with slavery, killing Indians, women not voting. We're not very good at the beginning of these things. We're really great, though, as we move along. We live in a nation where, sadly, people listen to things. They get afraid very easily. We have 40 million adult Americans who are functional illiterates, which means they can't read and write above the 4th grade level. So that's the America we live in, and sometimes we have to put up with that. But everybody, regardless of their level of ignorance, I believe, at their core is good and has a good heart. And if presented with the truth, and the truth is that Muslim Americans are Americans the same as every other American.
And what do you say, Michael?
What do
you say, Michael, to a family member of someone who was killed at ground zero, who says, you know, I don't really think this is appropriate? Look in the camera and tell us what you would say to that family member.
I would say that I completely understand how you feel. If a member of my family was murdered, I live in a nation where they would not allow me to sit on the jury. Yet common sense kind of says to me, well, who better to judge those who took my family member's life than the family itself to get retribution? But we don't have a system like that, do we? The reason we don't is because we have to separate the emotion from it, because sometimes if we just let emotion take over and run things, the wrong decisions get made. I went to Mass yesterday, Wolf. Do you think I'm a pedophile sympathizer? Should I be judged because some priests committed a crime against children? Do you think less of me because of that, or because Timothy McVeigh was a Catholic and blew up the Oklahoma City building? Should a Catholic church not be allowed anywhere near the Oklahoma City building because he was Catholic? I got to tell you, I remember the very first presidential election. I was 6 years old, John Kennedy versus Richard Nixon. And I remember, as 6 years old, hearing all this stuff about if Kennedy was elected, the Pope was going to run the country. And I remember feeling like there was something wrong, there was something bad about, why was I bad? Because I was Catholic. And this is our history, and we have got to stop this. And those of us who are part of the majority have to always stand up for the minority when they're being bullied by people who are using this issue for their own political gain.
What did you think of the way the president, the commanding general in Afghanistan, General Petraeus, the news media for that matter, handled the whole issue of that pastor in Florida who said he was going to burn a couple hundred copies of the Quran?
Well, it's never good to have our general saying that we're afraid of anything. I mean, I got a whole other thing about that. We could do that, take another show on that. I just think when you're talking about burning the Quran, let me just point out again to my fellow Americans, 80% of whom don't have a passport and never leave the country, never see the rest of the world, don't know anything about what's going on. You know, I've had the good fortune to be able to get out of here and see a bit of this planet we live on. The Quran has 25 different mentions of Jesus in that holy book. 25. They consider Jesus a messenger of God. Why would you burn a book that beautifully mentions Jesus at least 24 times? I mean, how many Americans even know that? It really is just it just seems so crazy to me, and I'm fed up with it, and I just felt like I had to take a stand and say something about this. They're, you know, Arabs, Muslims of this, you know, they're 0.6% of our population. Whenever the angry mob turns on a small group, it's best to know that when they're done with that group, they're off to the next small group. So everybody should think about that, because we all belong to our own ethnic groups that either came to this country by choice or whose ancestors were brought here by force as slaves, or who were here originally as Native Americans. But that's the melting pot of who we are, and we should always stand up against the angry mob when they're trying to take away a basic inherent right of anybody in this country.